Hello and welcome back to episode 52 of the Engage 8 podcast. I'm Michael with my co-hosts Zach and Josh. Today we are going to talk some March Madness. The first round is over, the round of 64 and round of 32. We're going to recap some of that and then get into some of the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 previews. But first, Zach is going to get us started with the hash mark segment with some big NFL changes.
Yeah, we were kind of bombarded with a few tweets over the last 48 hours of new rules changes and policies that have been implemented. First off, the NFL trade deadline has been pushed back 1 week until the Tuesday after the Week 9 games, and the NFL also banned the hip drop tackle, and that violation will be considered a 15-yard penalty. And the NFL is also planning to play another game on Christmas Day this year. So the teams are going to be playing on Christmas will also be playing the previous Saturday. So it will be viewed as a Sunday to Thursday turnaround, but instead it will be Saturday to Wednesday. So the big one that we got this morning was the NFL is changing their kickoff format. Josh, if you could do me a favor, throw that up on the screen. You can do that during editing. But something that has been tried out in the XFL for a year or two. The NFL is adopting a new kickoff format. The ball will be set at the kicking team's own 35-yard line, like normal, but the coverage unit will then line up at the opposing team's 40-yard line. Then there's a 5-yard buffer zone. And then the receiving team will set up their guys at their own 35-yard line, aside from the return specialist or two that they have in the back. And then the ball will have to land in the landing zone, which is from the 20-yard line to the goal line. And if the ball doesn't reach the 20-yard line, a touchback is going to be awarded at the 40-yard line. If it's kicked into the end zone just on the fly, it'll be a touchback awarded to the 30-yard line. And then if the ball lands in the field of play, then rolls into the end zone, a touchback will be awarded at the 20-yard line. Now, the players can't move, obviously, other than the kicker or kickoff specialist until the ball is touched by the return team. And as it was before, if the ball goes out of bounds, it's ruled an illegal touching and the ball will be marked at the 40-yard line. But now teams are going to have to make it known that they are either attempting a normal kickoff or an onside kick. So it's kind of a big change. We've seen it for only a little bit of time. So I'm very interested to see if this kind of limits the amount of kick returns we see, or we just see a whole bunch of it with all the touchback rules.
I don't think it's going to limit the returns at all. I think it's going to do quite the opposite. You see teams we saw all year this year, people just kicking into the back of the end zone. I think even though it's just 5 yards, I think taking that to the 30 definitely changes that. And then you obviously can't. What's the other thing? If you kick it short, it's to the 40, but that's probably not going to happen much, if ever. But yeah, I mean, it's incentive to go after and try to get kick returns, especially with the bouncing in the field of play and then going into the back of the end zone will be 20-yard line, which is pretty non-advantageous for the returning team. So I think we see a lot more kick returns. I think it'll be fun, much better than what we saw this year, which was basically the removal of the play itself.
As far as the kickoffs go, just a very interesting rule. We saw it in the XFL already, so we have some examples of what it will look like if you see it in the XFL, but it's very interesting. It's very different. I think it definitely will increase the amount of kickoffs returned. Uh, one thing it's supposed to be for is to prevent injuries, I'm pretty sure, which if the NFL's goal is to prevent injuries, especially with the hip drop tackle, it makes no sense why they would decide to play games on a Wednesday and Saturday, another week of short rest for players, something that'll cause just more injuries and hurt people's bodies more. So you're making these changes to try to help their bodies, but you're forcing them to play hurt. It's kind of just like a double negative or whatever, but that just doesn't make sense to me. But I'm excited to see the new kickoff. It will be different, though. It'll be interesting to see how teams decide to approach it.
All right. So with that, are we ready to move on to some first weekend recap of March Madness?
See,
All right. Moving on to the East region, starting off round of 64. Top three seeds, all crews in this region. Northwestern has a big comeback overtime win against FAU to move them on to the second round. A hot UAB team gave San Diego State a lot of trouble, especially compared to San Diego State's second round game. But SDSU escaped that one. Biggest upset in this one, Auburn losing to Yale. Auburn is a great three-point shooting team. They're a great offensive team who's actually pretty scrappy on defense as well, but they only make 7 threes in this game, don't shoot it very well at all. And they get upset by a Yale team who turned out to be not very good. The Cane, they stay hot, weren't going to make the tournament. They stole a bid, then they get in here and they knock off a suspect BYU team. I wasn't too confident in this team. I know they were ranked high in, I believe, net and KenPom. all season, but I just was never too high on them. They lose to Duquesne in the first round. Drake, they were up big in the second half versus Washington State. I believe they were up like 10 or 11 with late in the second half, but then Washington State has a strong final few minutes there, get the win over Drake to move them on to the round of 32. And then I'll just talk about the round of 32, and then I'll just pass it off to you guys for the to do these regions. That way we're not just going back and forth the whole time. But round of 32, there were no single digit games in this region in the round of 32. And I know there's I wanted to talk about this. A lot of people online saying how this tournament's trash and whatnot. And like, I mean, that's what you're going to get with March Madness. You're going to either get a ton of upsets in the first weekend on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and everybody's going to be like, oh, this tournament's great. And then second weekend rolls around and the Sweet 16 games and the Elite Eight games suck because you have one seeds destroying 7 and 8 or 8 seed, I guess is a bad example, but you get one seed destroying 7 seeds and 6 seeds because they just had a Cinderella run to the Sweet 16. They run into a better team. This year, we don't see a lot of upsets in the first couple rounds, but it's setting up for what could be a legendary Sweet 16, Elite Eight, Final Four. So I prefer it this way, but the one thing I would want to not have that we had this year was we had a ton of blowouts in the first weekend. That I can get along with was not great. Speaking of blowouts, UConn continues to be dominant. Northwestern was out of that game pretty early. San Diego State blew out Yale after that big Yale upset over Auburn. Illinois, they're one of the hottest teams in college basketball right now, especially offensively. Terrence Shannon is just insane. They destroyed Duquesne. And then Washington State did stay in that game against Iowa State more than Northwestern, Yale, and Duquesne did. But Iowa State still gets a double-digit win and moves on looking dominant.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I don't have too many games to talk about. I just want to touch base on a couple different teams. UConn, I'm very interested to see how they're going to handle adversity once they face it within the next couple rounds. They've been severely outmatching the teams they've played so far, so I'm looking forward to see them in a tight, close one and see how they finish it out. And then I'm really looking forward to see Illinois in the next few rounds as well. I think they have a really good chance to advance to the Elite Eight and maybe even the Final Four, depending on their matchups. And they just seem like they're out hustling the other teams they're facing. They're making those hard to make plays, the ones that don't show up on the stat sheet. You see their guards diving on the ground when they really don't need to be facing off against two defenders, throwing it, dive in, getting the ball, throwing it off the leg, getting it out of bounds. And those are the plays that win you a national championship. And it wouldn't shock me to see that in this next round of the Sweet 16 or maybe even the Elite Eight that wins them a close game.
Yeah, speaking on UConn, they look phenomenal. They have dominated so far in the tournament. They've looked like the best team so far. They blew out Stetson, blew out Northwestern. Really not much of a fight. They're going to have a rematch. We'll talk about it here soon. National championship rematch against San Diego State, who did what they had to do. They struggled a little bit against UConn, but they were able to pull it out. Auburn, very disappointing tournament. I had picked them to go all the way to the Final Four. They were really hot. They played great in the SEC tournament. They were blowing out teams, but the SEC tournament is not the NCAA tournament. The success doesn't translate. They had an ejection early in the game. Chad Baker-Mazar was questionably ejected for a flagrant 2. But even without one of your best players, you should still be able to beat Yale. They were not. BYU was upset by Duquesne. Duquesne came in the tournament high, like you guys said, and they were able to get it done. But Illinois, another team that looks like one of the better teams in the tournament right now, is a 3 seed. They won the Big Ten tournament. They finished the season very hot. Terrence Shannon Jr. is playing phenomenal so far in the tournament. He's been the best player on the court in each of their games. 26 points against Morehead State, 30 points against Duquesne. Looks very good. Drake sadly choked to Washington State. I like this Washington State team all year. Kyle Smith, he did a great job coaching them. Both those coaches from Washington State and Drake left. I can't remember where they went.
Drake coach went to
Was it Van?
Where did the Drake coach go to? He just got hired. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's not Ohio State.
West Virginia. He went to West Virginia. And Kyle Smith, I thought he
Tough
went
weekend
to
for Drake, by the way, just in general.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Kyle Smith, he went to Stanford. So both those coaches are gone. Washington State, I don't think they're in the Big Ten. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Iowa State looked solid against South Dakota State. It was a little close early, but they were able to pull away. Illinois, Iowa State is going to be a very good game. And Marcus Domask also had a triple-double against Morehead State. I wanted to bring that up. First triple-double since
He's phenomenal.
Morant. Yeah, he's big guard. They're tough, man.
My dad calls him dumbass. But he's a hell of a player though. Moving on to the West region. round of 64. Top three seeds cruise again in this one. Like I said, that's just what we had here, but I'm happy we have a lot of the best teams still in the tournament. Michigan State locked up Mississippi State in the first round. I believe they won that game by like 15 points. Mississippi State couldn't do much offensively, looked pretty lost for much of the first half and a lot of the second. Grand Canyon and their electric offense upset St. Mary's, a team that I thought could go far. I think in my bracket on here, I think I had them going like the Elite Eight or something, or at least the Sweet 16. They lose in the first round to Grand Canyon. Phenomenal offense. Another phenomenal offense. Bama, they give up 96 points in the first round, still win by 13. Their defense is just so horrible, but their offense is so good that it just cancels out. Um, they are what Kentucky should have been. Um, Clemson dominates New Mexico and Patino. That was a popular upset picking New Mexico. I think they were favored, I'm pretty sure, going into the game in Vegas. But they could not get the win. Clemson dominated that game from start to finish, showed that they were a pretty overlooked team going into the tournament here. And now, have you guys seen the Richard Pitino rumors?
I have not.
He's being talked to by Louisville.
Oh, wow.
Could you imagine, bro? Could you
I
imagine?
can't see that happening. That'd be crazy.
That would be hilarious. I'm rooting for that though.
That would.
I mean, it would. I just don't see it. Like, if they do hire him, it's literally only because he's Patino. Because let's be honest, he does not deserve that job yet.
I've seen so many
He
people.
sucked at Minnesota, and he was okay this year in New Mexico.
I've seen a couple people linked to that job. I can't think of them off the top of my head.
Oh yeah, they've
Because
they've
they've hired
everybody.
like
They won't get
5 different
anybody
guys
good,
already.
But yeah, they've talked to everybody though. That's just Louisville. They'll figure it out maybe in 20 years. But moving on here, last game I got here for the round of 64, Nevada. They were up 17 in the second half against Dayton. They blow that lead to Dayton, who's just not a very good team, especially for a 7 seed. Nevada absolutely should have won that game. That was just an embarrassing loss for them. Round of 32 here in the West region. Michigan State was in the UNC game early, but UNC just went on that run about halfway through the first half, and they just really never gave the lead up after that. It ended up being just an extended run. So UNC moves on fairly easily in their first two games there, despite a rough start against Michigan State. Bama kept a mid-level lead on GCU for most of the game. They were up by like 7 and 8 and 6 for a lot of this game. GCU just couldn't get any closer than like 4 or 5. They couldn't quite close the gap in that game. Alabama pulls away a little bit extra late. I believe they won that game by 11. Clemson, who in my opinion is the most shocking Sweet 16 team, beats Baylor pretty easily. Led most of the game. I don't know about like if it was like 3-2 or something for Baylor, but from when I was watching, Clemson was ahead the entire time. And then Arizona led Dayton throughout. Dayton made some pushes like late in the first half, but Arizona is just too sound offensively. They played solid defense against Dayton. And when you got bucket getters like Caleb Love, like you're gonna be in a good spot regardless. But yeah, a lot of chalk in this one as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. North Carolina kind of just taking care of business as they went along. Sorry, Mike. I was rooting for Michigan State in the second round, but just didn't work out. They were in there for a little bit though, but Bama just I said it before and I'll say it again. They're going to have to rely on their offense in order to win in this tournament, and they have done so, especially in the round of 64, winning 109-96. That was kind of nuts. And like you mentioned, Josh, Clemson somehow coming out on top against New Mexico and Baylor and working their way to the Sweet 16. A little bit of a preview for me. I don't think they make it past Arizona because they are pretty good. And like you mentioned again, Josh, Nevada kind of grasping defeat from the jaws of victory in that 17-point choke. So that's really unfortunate for them. But once again, I'm very excited to see North Carolina try and keep up with Alabama coming up. And I think probably the winner of that game is going to work their way to the Final Four.
Yeah, just a quick, I don't know if you can consider this breaking news. I just wanted to say we could have waited till next round, but I'm going to say it now. I don't know if you guys have seen this, considering you're both Kentucky fans, but John Calipari will remain the head coach at Kentucky University.
It was after his radio show yesterday. It was pretty much confirmed.
Yeah, so
I would have been genuinely blown away if you had something something to say there.
Yeah, it is official though. I was interested to try to see how you would react to that.
He's on the recruiting trail. He did his radio show yesterday. I mean, who else are you gonna hire?
Yeah. Speaking of another guy on the recruiting trail, Tom Izzo's on the recruiting trail. Unfortunately, after losing to North Carolina, they got ahead early. They were up 12 pretty early into the game, 12 minutes in, and then just a couple bad turnovers let North Carolina back in it right away, and we're really never able to kind of get back in the game offensively. Their defense struggled for most of the game. Their upperclassmen struggled late in the game. Unfortunate that they were unable to put a great team around guys like Tyson Walker and Malik Hall, who are phenomenal college players and will be graduating and won't be able to have another chance at the tournament. But North Carolina, they looked good. They were able to get out of the first weekend. Grand Canyon, they looked very good in the first round. Fun story. They had a lot of fans there, even though who knows if that's a real university or not. Alabama, they continued what Alabama does, scored 109 in the first round against Charleston in point battle. Arizona, they continued to look solid. They were able to get a pretty easy first weekend with Dayton and Long Beach State, trying to set up that potential Caleb Love versus UNC rematch to see how that goes. And I'm with you, Josh. I think Clemson was kind of my surprise of the weekend. I was not expecting them to get out of the first round, but they did. They beat up New Mexico, were able to beat Baylor, who we had talked about, struggling away from home, and uh, their coach possibly being a one championship merchant, which might be true. He's struggled to get out of the round of
And
32
that's
otherwise.
who Kentucky fans want. You guys want Scott Drew?
Yeah,
Shit
who
doesn't make no sense to me, bro.
you look
Get
at
the
his last
fuck
10
out of here with
tournaments.
Scott Drew. Come on now, man.
I love Scott Drew, but struggling in the tournament outside of
He's not a
one big run.
Kentucky guy.
Yeah. But another, like you said, bracket with chalk 1, 4, 2, and 6. Uh, only one double digit seed advanced to the round of 16. So, uh, could be a good matchup. We'll talk about.
Yep. Moving on here to the South region. Houston, Marquette, Duke, and A&M all cruise. JMU upsets Wisconsin. When Wisconsin can't shoot, they just don't play well. And it caught up to them in this game. Opposite of the Big Ten tourney, when they figured out how to shoot for a few games and they went on a run, got all the way to losing to Illinois in the championship. Could not do that here. JMU upsets them. NC State, DJ Burns, DJ Horn, they stay hot. Beat another mid-level Big 12 team. And in Texas Tech as Baylor. I'm trying to think of who were the other BYU, the other mid-level Big 12 teams that lost. Kentucky lost to Oakland. It is what it is. Jack Golke couldn't miss. Luckily we won't have to worry about him next year, considering he's 24 playing against a bunch of 18-year-olds. Some of these guys were in 7th grade when he was a freshman in in college, so it is what it is. The zone rattled Kentucky bad. They just were not prepared for the zone. I think that's why Calipari is getting a lot of criticism right now, is because of that. Kentucky has never played well against zones. John Calipari's offense just does not play well against zones. Teams know that. I don't know why more teams don't play zone, but they got in a situation here where they weren't prepared for it, similar to St. Peter's at times, and it just didn't work out for them. Kentucky couldn't rebound at all. A lot of long rebounds. When you're chucking bad shots, and I'm gonna say bad shots, even for Golke, those are bad shots. When you're chucking those and you're missing them, it's gonna be a long rebound. Your guards are gonna have to go out there and try to rebound. Kentucky's guards are crashing the boards. The ball's going over their head. It's just simple mistakes that cost him. Reed Shepard was not good. He had the yips. It looked like Dillingham at his moments. Reeves was great. It was a tough one, man. It's a tough pill to swallow still a week later. This was a team that should have been significantly better than they are, or than they were. One of the better recruiting classes in Cal's era, the best offensive Kentucky team in over 2 decades. This team just could never figure it out defensively. They were a little too young for the moment. And like I said, I mean, when you got kids who are out here 18 years old, 19 years old, playing against grown ass men who are 24 years old, I mean, that's a problem maybe more with the NCAA and giving out free COVID years to everybody, but that's a completely different conversation. Um, like I said, everyone wants to fire Calipari. That just doesn't make sense to me with his recruiting prowess. There's not many better options. Like I said, who do you want to fire, or who do you want to hire? Scott Drew? Like, come on, man. What are we doing here? You're not going to go get Nate Oates. Nate Oates is a guy who could coach at Kentucky, maybe. The thing with Kentucky is it's not like all these other like solid schools. Like, I hate to use your team as an example here, Mike, but when Izzo's gone, like any good coach can go coach Michigan State. Like, just because you're a good coach doesn't mean you can come coach at Kentucky. Like, you have to be. I know Matt Jones was talking about this earlier this week. You have to be a rock star. Like, the only 2 guys that can really coach at Kentucky right now are John Calipari and Rick Pitino. Those are the only two ones. You got to have that swagger to you. You got to be ready to just get beat up every day because you're going to get nothing but criticism. It's just a ruthless fan base. And got like Scott Drew isn't built for, dude, he would be done after a year of the Kentucky hate, bro. There's no chance he could handle it. So everybody that wants Calipari out, just when that day does come and your wish comes true and we go and we hire a guy like Scott Drew or Eric Musselman and they get destroyed by the Kentucky media and they can't handle it, I think you're going to be missing when you had Cal who knew how to handle it and could handle it. But moving on past the Kentucky game, Florida and Colorado, they combined for 202 points, which is just insane. 102 to 100. Colorado wins in a shootout there. Those teams combined for 100 points in the paint that game, which is insane. Round of 32, Houston and A&M, they play in a ref show game, but it was a phenomenal game, one of the better games of the weekend. Houston is the better team. They overcame some foul trouble. They had a bad whistle, elite shot making from A&M came late in that game. They still overcome all that and get the win. Duke blows the doors off James Madison. That was a cute little upset. Thought maybe James Madison could hang in that Duke game. They just get the doors blown off them. Duke's playing good ball now somehow. It just seems like they were not playing their best ball towards the end of the year, and then all of a sudden they get in this tournament and they're winning games. But we'll see what comes for them when they got Houston in this next round, right? Yeah, all right. We'll see Duke out of here real soon. But NC State and Oakland played in a barn burner. NC State dominated in overtime, got the win. Got Goki out of there. I think what did Goki shoot? Like 6 for 20 from there or something? It was something stupid.
Bad.
Like,
Yeah. Trey Townsend though is a dog.
he is a dog. He is a dog. But I mean, he's old as fuck too, though, isn't he?
He's just a normal senior.
You got a 9 to 5.
He's a normal senior. He's gonna be a grad transfer this year, most likely.
Yeah, everyone's a grad transfer now. Marquette outlasts the Colorado team that was playing well. Kolek, I think, is as good as any guard in the tournament right now. He's phenomenal, man. He's such a good passer. When he gets to his left, he's almost impossible to stop going to the rim. He's phenomenal. He's one of the better guards in the tournament. But a little more drama, I guess, in this one as we have the 5 seed lose, the 3 seed lose. But still, you still got the 1 and 2 seed in there. The 4 seed was dominant. So, yeah.
So, yeah, Houston kind of took care of business to start out, and then they were in a real close one with A&M. Did they go double OT, I think? And then A&M was shooting like 45 free throws or something like that. It was insane. But Nebraska, a team that I think I picked to beat A&M because I was confident in their ability to get hot. They just got shut down early on and just couldn't really keep up. But kind of going all the way down to the Kentucky game, I remember I texted you partway through the first half, Josh, and I was like, what does this white boy think he is? Because I remember watching them like a minute or two into the game. They were like, yeah, this kid, he shot like 335 shots this year, and only 8 of them were twos. And I'm like, that's me during LCYB and intramurals. Like, I don't step inside the arc unless it's like an accident where I got a KD foot where I'm stepping on the line. And then all of a sudden he's chucking these, like you said, bad shots. But it's very Paul George-esque of you, because if they're going in, how bad can they be? And I mean,
I was with Paul George there. I'm with me now.
He's just he was sparking. I mean, it's just a shame that 2 out of the last 3 years we run into just the random white guy who just decides to put his business administration
He's at least good
on
though.
hold.
He's at least good though. Eater
I
sucked.
know, but like,
Yeah,
Doug
Eater
sucked.
He just came out of nowhere, though. But
He was horrible.
either way, it's just a shame we ran into 2 guys who decided to put their business administration degrees on hold just to create some chaos in March Madness for a little bit. But
Eater was at
who
least a
I
little
looking at?
younger too, though. I mean, this guy's
Right, and he had a nice little stash, and I think he had a slight perm going on, some nice curls, but
crazy.
but yeah, Marquette took care of business in the first round, almost lost to Colorado in the second round, but them against NC State is going to be a really interesting one next round. And God, I hate Duke with a passion. It's strictly because of that TikTok kid. Oh my God, I was praying for JMU to just beat their brakes off, but it was the reverse.
But Caleb Williams is great.
I mean,
pick a side.
It's just different when it's your own team, I guess. But I'd rather my guy be vibing in the sidelines of a March Madness game rather than singing 2 days into college on TikTok over and over again. So maybe that's just a little bit of bias, but that's where I stand. But yeah, I mean, NC State and Marquette's going to be an interesting one, and hopefully Houston, just like you said, Josh, gets Duke out of there soon.
I just want to say about Golke really quick before you go, Mike. He I do want to give him credit because he is really good. Like, I mean, his jumper's obviously phenomenal, and he's a great shooter. But he does have one of those shot selections that in the Kentucky game, it's great. You're America's sweetheart. You're the best player in the world because you're making got shots with two hands in your face. But when you're not making that shot, you're the number one hated
Looking like
person
me.
on your team. Everybody, that's just not a that's not a way you win games. I mean, you can win a game like they did against Kentucky if you hit all those shots, but as soon as you don't start hitting them, i.e., the next game, I mean, there you go.
I agree with you, but at the same time, NC State was able to watch that Kentucky game and just see that he couldn't miss, and you have to be on him no matter what, because considering how hot he was. So I think you defend him differently when you're NC State versus Kentucky, and Kentucky
He had some
also
tough shots though.
isn't a
Kentucky
bad state.
adjusted to
He had
him.
some tough shots,
They
yes.
adjusted to him. Like
It was gross.
he was just making them. Like his first few were open, and I was like, all right, get the fuck on him. And then they were putting like
Right.
damn near two on him off ball.
Yeah.
Like they were
Reeves
Calvin
and
Johnson guarding him,
Shepard were
bro.
kind of like they were
Yeah,
getting on him and all that.
they
Like
threw
guarding
everyone
from
at him.
30.
Everyone guarded him, bro. Like
Yeah.
it was just insane.
But yeah, shout out Jack Golke. What a win for
Like,
Oakland. I liked them a lot going into the tournament. I just thought Kentucky's offense would be able to outscore them. I should have trusted my gut. I had watched them in the semifinal of the Horizon League tournament, and they showed the stats of him only having like 7 2-pointers attempted and like 300 threes. I was like, wow, that's just crazy. I wonder if you just don't think of it twice. And then all of a sudden you go to the round of 64 and he's out there just chucking threes and playing phenomenal. He was
make or
great.
miss league.
Trey Townsend was great. And after looking it up, he is younger than you, Josh. So
Trey
don't hate on
Townsend's
him.
younger than me.
Yeah,
Damn, that's crazy.
yeah, barely, barely. But
How is he gonna be? How is he a senior then?
I don't know. But he was born on August 30th of 2002.
Bro, skip the grade, I guess. Bro.
Great player though. Hopefully he goes to a Power One school and is able to go off. Houston, they struggled in the first round. Really, the only one seed to struggle. They struggled against Texas A&M. Didn't blow them out overtime. They had 4 players foul out. Their 2 good guards fouled out. But they were able to overcome that. They went through adversity, and hopefully for them, this will help them throughout the tournament. They've played in those close games. The other number one seeds really haven't had those close games yet, so maybe they would succumb to the pressure later. That'll be interesting to see. James Madison just bullied Wisconsin like we predicted. Uh, they are very good. Unfortunately, they weren't able to go into the game against Duke with that same mentality as Duke just bullied them. Easily won by about 40 points. Filipowski played good. Jared McCain was phenomenal, though. He dominated the first 2 rounds. Got a shout out to him, I guess. NC State continues to be the best story of the tournament so far. DJ Burns gets them through the first weekend. They beat Texas Tech pretty easily, and then they had one of the best games of the tournament against NC State Oakland. But the best game of the tournament so far for me is the Florida versus Colorado game. Very close. Colorado came into the tournament hot, looked very good. Walter Clayton Jr. was phenomenal for Florida. He hit the 3 from about the logo to tie the game, and then Colorado's able to come down and hit basically a buzzer beater to win. Great game. Both teams scored almost over 100. Marquette struggled a little bit against Western Kentucky early. They were down, but they figured it out. Went into Colorado and won. This is so far, in my opinion, the best region in terms of excitement. Really, only the Duke James Madison was the main blowout, but a couple great Sweet 16 matchups.
All right, moving on to our final region here, Midwest, round of 64. This is a lot of blowouts in this region. Purdue, Tennessee, Creighton, Gonzaga, Utah State, and Oregon all cruised in the first round. Kansas played in an insane game with Sanford, but the refs played a big factor. This showed, at the very least, Kansas's vulnerability even more than we already have seen over the past month. We knew they were just a ticking time bomb, and we saw very soon that they were. Texas led for a lot of their game against Colorado State after I think they went down like 10-2 or 8-2 early, and then they went on a huge run and led for the entire game. Colorado State fought back a little bit, but it was just never enough for them. Moving on to the round of 32, Purdue dominated Utah State throughout. They were looking like one of the more dominant teams in the tournament. That was just an impressive game. I thought going in that could be a tough game for them. But it ended up not even being a tough game at all. They were, of course, Utah State was in it in the beginning. They didn't get blown out like right out of the gate, but I think Purdue ended up winning that game by what, 40 or close to 40 at the end.
39.
Yeah, dominated. That was a phenomenal game from them. Zach Edey is looking to win that most outstanding player. But they got some tough games coming up. Like I said, I worry about that Creighton game for them. But we'll see. Gonzaga let Kansas hang in there for the first half, but the Zags just dominated a fraudulent Kansas team in the second half. They had nothing going for them. Losing McCullough for this tournament just was a nail in the coffin for Kansas. Speaking of Creighton, Creighton and Oregon went into two overtimes, but Creighton dominated the second overtime like I've never seen a team do before. It was like the game, like it wasn't even a close game for the first whatever 45 minutes. Like they dominated that second overtime, all-time spread cover for them to go from losing a game late to covering like 8 or whatever it was. Great for them. Tennessee played a tight game with Texas, and Texas had a lot of chances to win this game, especially late. But Tennessee is just a better team than them, and they showed it. Tennessee is another team who I think is just going to meet their match soon. I don't think they beat Creighton, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, I mean, the main elephant in the room is Purdue just dominating their way to the Sweet 16. They look like they're on some different shit, some different timing this year, and they're proving it. They're playing really well. Headlined by Edie, who's, like you said, coming for that most outstanding player of the year. Tennessee and Creighton, I mean, I guess you could say they're both taking care of business, even though they both had tough second round games. Even though Creighton, they may have won by 13, but it took two overtimes to get there. So use that information how you will. Tennessee only beating Texas by 4, but they got it done. That's what you got to do. You just got to survive in advance. I hope Creighton beats the brakes off of them. We don't know though, and I hope the Zags take out Purdue. But I mean, what have the Zags proved so far? I mean, Kansas has been hurt. They're not that impressive anymore. And McNeese is, I mean, cool name, but I don't know. So it's good. That's an interesting Sweet 16 for me. Maybe it's just because of the chalk, but 1 against 5 and then 2 against 3. I think we should see some good games.
Yeah, Purdue after a rough start against Grambling, they were able to get it going. Early in this game was pretty close. And you almost with Purdue after what we saw last year against FDU, you think they might choke, and they did look a little nervous out there. But they were able to get it done in the second half. They dominated, and they went in to that round of 32 game against Utah State and just dominated Utah State. It was never close. They were up by like 40. They were playing Purdue basketball. They looked very good, and they're going to go up against a team, the Gonzaga, that looked very good as well. I liked McNeese a lot going into this tournament, and they just destroyed them. It was not a close game at all. They picked apart their top-ranked defense. They hit their open threes. They hit their threes. They passed phenomenally. Nemhard was phenomenal. Then they went against Kansas, who played great in the first half and just bullied them in the second half. This is the best this Gonzaga team has looked all year. They're going up against Purdue, and this is going to be a phenomenal matchup. We'll talk about that in a minute, though. Creighton was able to beat Oregon pretty easily, and then went against they beat Akron easily, and then went and played Oregon, who upset South Carolina pretty easily. Dante looked good. Cousinard looked phenomenal. He was great. And in that double overtime game, I thought Oregon, they had chances at it. I thought they would get it done, but Creighton was able to outlast them. They had the better overall team, and they're able to continue and win. Texas, Colorado State was a rough game to watch. Texas was able to pull away. Tennessee, they were able to beat St. Peter's, who was at St. Peter's. They don't have Doug Edert and Shaheen Holloway anymore. Tennessee, Texas, another game where Dalton Connect didn't look good. He didn't look good really in this weekend. He didn't look good at all, but they're able to get it done without him playing his best basketball. Texas tried to fight back late. They were unable to. But Tennessee Creighton's going to be in another pretty solid matchup. SEC didn't have the greatest tournament so far, but they're able to get two teams into the Sweet 16. Not bad.
All right. With that being said, we will move on to our preview for this weekend of the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight. I believe we have 12 games to go over here, so we'll start here with the rematch of the national championship from last season, UConn and San Diego State. Do have UConn winning this game. If there's one thing that I have taken from the first weekend, it's although I thought before, bias aside, I thought Houston was the best team. I have changed my mind, and I think UConn is the best team. And I think they are the scariest team. They just have everything. They can shoot you to death. They have rim protectors. They can guard. They have championship prowess from winning it last season, although they didn't bring back a ton of people from last year's team. And Dan Hurley is just one of the best coaches. He is one of the names that can coach at Kentucky, by the way. Just adding that from what I said before. He is one of the people who you could hire, but he's never leaving UConn. So I got UConn winning that game. Illinois, Iowa State. This game has potential to be the best game of the weekend. I am so excited for this game. You got one of the best offenses in all of college basketball in Illinois and one of the best defenses in all of college basketball for Iowa State. It's almost like that the diet of the Houston Kentucky game that we were talking about last week. Um, oh man, I'm back and forth on this one. I'm gonna go with Iowa State though. I'm gonna trust the defense here. I know Terrence Shannon's gonna go get you 30. That's not gonna be a problem. It's gonna be, can you go and stop a guy like Domas? Like, what can you do if you're Iowa State to limit everybody around Terrence Shannon, because he's gonna be great. You just got to make sure not nobody else is great. I think Iowa State does that. I'm very, very confident in them still. But moving on in this game, UConn versus Iowa State, I am going to take UConn to go to the Final Four for all the reasons I just said. They do a little bit of everything. They don't have any holes in their game. They don't have any glaring weakness that you look at them and you're like, oh, this is what's going to kill them. The only thing that can kill them is just playing another team who's as good as them. And I think they're better than Iowa State, where we sit right now on March 26, 2024. And I have UConn going to the Final Four out of the East region.
So for UConn and San Diego State, I not only think UConn is the better team of these two, but like you mentioned, Josh, they're one of the best teams in the entire tournament. I have them not blowing past San Diego State, but I have them winning. And call me a homer, but I mean, I'm going Illinois over Iowa State. Yeah, Iowa's got the defensive advantage, and usually in these games, you sink to the level of your training. And if a really good defensive team is out there, you got to bank on them. But I don't know, maybe I'm just a little bit biased. I'm going Illinois with that, and the bias is going to show again. I'm going Illinois over UConn. Maybe I'm just picking an upset just to be quirky, but I don't know. I want to see Illinois in the Final Four, and I want to see them make some noise in this tournament.
Yeah, I want to see them make some noise too as a Big Ten team, which has had a better tournament than they've had in recent years. They did pretty well in the first round, but the teams you expected to kind of fall off did. But you still got Illinois and Purdue, who we'll talk about in a minute. But I got Illinois beating Iowa State as well. I think Terrence Shannon is playing phenomenal. If Coleman Hawkins can get it going and Domas can keep it playing great. They've Dane Danger has been phenomenal for them as another big man. I think they're gonna be able to get it done against Iowa State. And then UConn San Diego State, a game of a national championship rematch from last year. And if there's a team that's going to want to beat UConn, it's going to beat San Diego State, obviously. They want to get their revenge. They want to get back to that point. But I think UConn is just better overall. I think UConn's going to win. They showed that they're probably the best team in this tournament. So I think they beat San Diego State. And then UConn, Illinois. As much as I want to pick Illinois to win, UConn has just been dominant so far in this tournament. It's hard to pick against them. So I'm gonna go with UConn to go to the Final Four, but uh, go Illinois, I guess. I have
All
to say.
right. Moving on here to the West region, North Carolina and Alabama. This is going to be another game that I'm really looking forward to. Alabama is a better offensive team than North Carolina, although North Carolina is a phenomenal offensive team. And then UNC obviously has them on the defensive end. That doesn't take much. But I'm gonna go with UNC. I don't think Bama's gonna be able to hold like Bake Hot and their inside presence just to go along with RJ Davis, who's gonna go out there and get you 30. He's just a phenomenal guard. I think that's gonna set up for a potential great matchup of RJ Davis versus Caleb Love. And with that being said, I am gonna go with Arizona beating Clemson as well. Clemson, like I said, was my number one shock to get here. I still can't believe they're here. Arizona's a great team on offense, and they got guys like Ballo who could help out on defense when they need him. So I have them beating Clemson, and then Arizona versus North Carolina, a game that everybody's kind of all college basketball fans have been fantasizing about all season, getting to see Caleb Williams, Caleb Love,
It's on your mind.
playing against UNC.
Rent
Yeah,
free.
yeah. There's been a lot of Caleb Williams stuff in the news today. I don't know, so I'm not gonna get too deep into it, but if you know, you know. Arizona and Caleb Love playing against UNC, and I'm gonna go with Arizona here. I just trust Caleb Love more than RJ Davis, although they're both phenomenal guards. Baycott is also great, but I think Ballo can hold his own with Baycott down there in the paint. I think this will be a very, very, very close game if we do see it. But I give the edge to Arizona as I think they're a little bit more well-rounded than UNC is. So I would have Arizona moving on to the Final Four at in Phoenix to play against UConn.
In our last episode, I believe I picked 3 out of these 4 teams correct. I had North Carolina, Alabama, Arizona, and I think Baylor making it to the Sweet 16. So I'm going to kind of stick with that blueprint. I think Alabama's going to beat North Carolina. I just, not that I trust their offense or their defense for that matter, but I'm going to just say that Alabama gets hot and they just score a million points. So I think North Carolina gets a little upset and Bama moves on. And then I'm going Arizona over Clemson. Clemson, like you guys mentioned before, they are kind of a shocker to be here, but I do think Arizona's the better team. And I have the battle of the A logos and Alabama and Arizona in the Elite Eight. I'm going Alabama. I'm going to stick with my previous picks and just staying on business.
Yeah, North Carolina, Alabama. I think this is going to be a really fun game. A couple great guards in this game. But I'm going to stick with the ACC. They've looked great all tournament. They've been maybe the best conference, definitely the best conference so far in the tournament. I'm going to pick North Carolina to beat Alabama. RJ Davis has looked very good. Baycott has looked good. Clemson, Arizona. I'm going to go with Arizona. Caleb Love as well. He's looked pretty solid so far. Arizona's struggled a little bit in this tournament, but I expect them to be able to get it done. Uh, I think the refs are going to want the rematch. I think the NCAA is going to want the rematch of North Carolina versus Arizona, which I'm going to stick to what I had in my bracket. I'm going to stick with Arizona beating North Carolina to go to the Final Four in Phoenix. I think that'd be a really fun game, obviously, for the RJ Davis, Caleb Love drama or whatever was there, but that'll just be a fun game to watch. But I got Arizona edging them.
Yeah, one thing I am noticing is we're filling out these Sweet 16 and on brackets, and I'm comparing it to the brackets that we filled out last week before the game started. Is I'm not really changing many of my pre-tournament stances that I had. This region here, the South that we're about to get to, will be the only region that I have a different Final Four team than when I did a week ago when we made our brackets, and that's only due to the fact that Kentucky eliminated in the first round. But with that being said, moving on to the South region, Houston and Duke. I got Houston. Duke is a fraudulent team. Kyle Filipowski is not as good as everyone makes him seem. I saw a mock draft of him going in the lottery earlier today. I would be
Gross.
blown away if he goes in the lottery. But I also said the same thing, I think, about Jaden Daniels being top three in the middle of the college football season. And now he's most likely going to be. So I guess what do I know? But I'm taking Houston, well-rounded team. They're going to be able to clamp up Duke in that TikTok offense and move on to the Elite Eight. NC State and Marquette. As much as I really, really want to pick NC State, and I do want them to win very badly, like I said, I think Kolek might be the best guard in this tournament, arguably. And I just think Marquette has too much experience. I trust Shaka Smart uh, to advance past this. What?
No, I just trust Shaka Smart in March is interesting, but
It
hey,
is interesting,
he's
but
back.
he also is an underrated
He is underrated.
drawer up of plays. Like if you need a big shot, he can get you the open shot. He can't make him make it, but I mean, we saw it
I
against
agree.
what was the one? Who did they play in the Big East? Villanova.
Yeah, that
The
was a
play
great
they
play.
ran there. I
Phenomenal.
mean,
Too bad it didn't count, but it was
yeah,
phenomenal.
yeah. Too bad it didn't count. But I guess this is where my trust will end for Shaka Smart as I have Houston beating them in the Elite Eight and going to the Final Four. Houston, I think, is one of the two best teams in this tournament, along with UConn. And I'm even though I tend to lead the in March the teams that have a lot of offensive prowess and teams with the best guards. As much as I do love Cryer and Shed, which it's March and I've learned that his name was Shed and not Sheed for the first time. But shout out to Shed. Um, they do have good guards. I know there's been some slander on whether they're only considered good guards because they're on one of the best teams, but I do think they are elite guards. Maybe not Kolek level, but they are elite. I think they beat Marquette here. I think they have the perimeter defense to be able to shut down guys like Kolek on Marquette and move to the Final Four to play whoever.
Houston and Duke. I'm not going to overthink this. I'm kind of in your boat. I don't think Duke is that good, even though they had two convincing wins in a row. I think Houston is my best team in the tournament. So I got Houston over Duke, and just for shits and giggles, I'm going NC State over Marquette. I think it's going to be cool to see or to potentially see an 11 seed kind of just going at it in the Elite Eight. And who knows, maybe we see them beat Houston, but it's going to be hard for me to pick against Houston at all in this tournament, especially since they are no longer going to be facing Kentucky. So I got Houston advancing to the Final Four out of the South region.
Yeah, I have Houston beating Duke as well. They're my national champion pick. They had me nervous this weekend, almost lost, but they have veteran experience. They've been here before. I think they're going to be able to get it done against Duke, who's got a lot of young guys on their team still. I love their guards defensively. As long as they don't get in too much foul trouble, they should be okay. And then NC State Marquette, I'm with you, Josh. I want to pick NC State so badly, but I'm going to go with Marquette. Shaka Smart, it's been 12 years since he's been in the Sweet 16. He's finally back. Uh, Just feels like so long considering, like you said, he's such a good coach. Is he a conference tournament merchant? Maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
But
Maybe.
hopefully he can continue the success in the actual tournament. This Marquette team is one of the best teams he's had. And then Houston versus Marquette. The Big East has been phenomenal so far in the tournament. They haven't lost. They're all three of their teams, Creighton, Marquette, and UConn are all still in. But I'm gonna go with Houston. They're my national champion pick. Like I said, I think their defense is gonna be able to shut them down. Just like the Duke game, as long as they don't get in too much foul trouble, I think they should be able to win this game. We saw them get in foul trouble against Texas A&M. They were somehow able to overcome it in overtime. But I like this Houston team a lot.
Yep. And Marquette, we can't forget that if they do need a sixth defender, we've seen Shaka Smart get out there and play defense
That's true.
earlier this season. So they do have that slight advantage. But moving on to our final region here, the Midwest, Purdue and Gonzaga. I gotta say, I'm nervous for Purdue in this game. I think what they showed me in the first weekend makes me feel more confident about them than if they just let's say they just beat Grambling by what they beat them by 28, I think, and then
Mhm.
they played Utah State and won that game by like 6. Then I think I look at this Gonzaga game a lot different, and I'm like, well, Gonzaga's a great 3-point shooting team. They could always get hot and beat Purdue. But I will say one thing about, like I said, Gonzaga chucks a ton of threes. That's just what they've been doing all year. They play an NBA style offense. Purdue allows 31% from three to their opponents. Not um the best you've ever seen, but not great by any means. So I think they'll be able to stop Gonzaga there. And what they showed me in the first weekend is that they're not scared of this moment. At least they're not scared yet. And they had every reason to be scared in that first game. So I'm taking Purdue to beat Gonzaga. And I might not have done that had they not blown out Utah State the way they did on Sunday. And then Creighton and Tennessee, I'm sticking with my opinion. I think Kalkbrenner is just going to be too much down there for Tennessee guards driving at the rim. They're going to need guys like Ziegler and Vescovy, who've been there for 28 years, to make some threes. I'm ready for next year when the COVID year is no longer a thing and we don't have guys like that in the league. But I think Creighton gets that win over Tennessee. I'm very confident in this Creighton team. And with that being said, like I said earlier, I'm picking three of my same comp or region winners, and I'm gonna go with Creighton to beat Purdue. Uh, just Kalkbrenner is the only thing. 3-time Big East Player of the Year. He's only the third player to win that, with Ewing and Alonzo Mourning, I believe, to win that 3 times. He won it 3 times. He's an insane rim protector. I think he'll be able to be the anti-Edie, which most teams in this tournament do not have a guy that can be the anti-Edie. Creighton does. I think matching up with them is a nightmare matchup for the Purdue Boilermakers. But that leaves my final four at UConn, Arizona, Houston, and Creighton. And I'm not gonna go deep into these because these are hypothetical games, but I'm taking UConn and Houston, and then UConn to beat Houston to go back to back for the first time since the 06-07 Gators, I believe, is the years, or is it 07-08? I always forget. I think it's 06-07.
All right. Well, so for Purdue and Gonzaga, you know what? I'm just gonna skip the fanfare. I got the same Elite Eight matchup as you, Josh. Purdue and Creighton. I think in the last episode I picked Tennessee over Creighton, but I've been really impressed with what Creighton has done. And like you mentioned, Josh, I think they're gonna match up well against Tennessee, and they're gonna match up well against Purdue. However, I do think Purdue, they're just playing so well. Maybe these last 2 games have been a fluke. It's just gonna be hard to pick against the 1 seed. Uh, I'm going Purdue just to play it safe, I guess you can say. If Creighton was a double digit seed, I mean, maybe I'd pick them, but I got to go Purdue here. It hurts a little bit, but I think Purdue advances to the Final Four.
Yeah, Purdue versus Gonzaga. This is, in my opinion, the hardest game for me to pick out of all of these games so far. We saw this game earlier this year in November. Purdue won by 10. Uh, Close game. Purdue is very good in the regular season, as always. Zach Edey versus Graham Ike is going to be a very big matchup, obviously. I think whoever wins that matchup is going to win the game. Um, I'm going to pick Purdue, but I don't think this Gonzaga team was playing that good in November, and that's when Purdue seems to play some of its best basketball. So only winning by 10 is a little interesting, but I'm going to pick Purdue. I'm going to trust them. They were one of the best teams in the regular season. We've seen so far chalk brackets do very good. No 1 seed's lost. I feel like you have to pick a 1 seed to lose here soon, but Creighton versus Tennessee, kind of for the similar reasons as you guys. I got Creighton winning, Creighton versus Purdue in the Elite Eight. I think Kalkbrenner is going to have a big game, like you said. Trey Alexander has been phenomenal. Baylor Shireman has been great. And Dalton Connect hasn't had a very good tournament so far. Hasn't really shown me much to expect him to turn it around this quickly. So I think Creighton's going to find a way to
Wildly
win.
inefficient.
Yeah.
Who could have
Uh,
predicted that? I'm gonna take my small wins in this tournament.
yeah. That, Reed Shepard was phenomenal in the first round.
I said I'm gonna take my small wins. There's some else in
That's
there,
true.
but I'm
That's
gonna
true.
take my small wins.
But I'm gonna stick with the Big East, so I got Creighton over Tennessee, and then Purdue versus Creighton. I can't believe I have this. I have Purdue going to the Final Four and beating Creighton. I think Zach Edey is. But what Purdue has shown me so far in this tournament, first round I was a little nervous, but in the second round they came out and dominated. They were hitting their shots, and if they can do that, there's really I don't know if there's a team that can beat them in the country. Maybe UConn.
There's
Uh,
not. If they play like they did against Utah State, they can win the whole thing. But
yes,
will they
100%.
do that? I don't know.
So I got Purdue going to the Final Four, and I'm usually not a fan of like chalk brackets where you have all the one seeds in the Final Four, but it seems like I have a 1-2, 1-1 in the Final Four here. I know the average is usually like 9.5 or 10. So, but this year's been different. We've seen a
They're
lot
good
the
teams.
top
It's
seeds
not
winning,
even
and
that
yeah,
bad.
they're good teams. I hate that I can't make fun of Shannon Sharp's all four ones bracket because that
Yeah.
could happen.
He had
He's not
He
far
had
off.
8 ones. He had the 8 ones.
That's
So
true. But I think all the women's ones won this weekend too.
their numbers probably pretty low for their average.
That's true.
I would assume
Uh,
theirs got to be like 6 or something.
Shannon just knows something that we don't.
Yeah,
that could be.
8's pretty low though when you think about it. You said it's usually combined 8.
It's like 9.5 or 10. It's
That's
like
pretty
around that.
low though when you think about it.
But that's just like one or two,
I mean, that's like you get
like
two one
top
seeds,
three
two, and then
seeds,
five,
and then
six.
like
Yeah,
an 11, a 10 or 11, and then like a 5,
not
4,
a
or
10 or
6.
11. He said 8. He said they're the
No,
average
I
is
know,
like
but no, but you have like two within the top three seeds, and then a like a 4, 5, or 6, and then like a 10 or 11
that would
for
be
the
like
average.
I'm lost here now.
Yeah, that'd be like 15.
He's saying the combined numbers, so 8 would be like
8 plus
one.
2 plus 1
Oh,
plus
I
1.
thought you meant the average. Oh, okay. I
No,
got you.
no, no, not the average of seed. That would be crazy. Yeah, no,
Got
he
you.
means like the total number of the. Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Okay, then yeah, 8 seems right.
It's
Yeah.
interesting though. I never thought of it like that. But do you finish that region? Oh,
Yeah, I got Purdue going to the Final Four. I had one more thing I wanted to say, but I have lost it.
go off then.
I got two
Yeah.
things I gotta say.
I got that's what it was. Say Gonzaga beats Purdue. We talked about the
Oh
Caleb
yeah,
Love rematch versus Arizona. We'd get a Nemhard rematch versus Creighton after he ditched them to go to his brother's school in Gonzaga. So, couple possible revenge games in the Elite Eight.
it's not even his brother's school either. His brother ditched Florida.
Yeah, that's true.
No loyalty in the family.
No, in the Nemhard
Zero.
family, zero loyalty.
Yeah.
That's all
All
I
right.
got.
I got two things to say before we kind of wrap it up. One, or they're both actually completely different sports. One of them is Bedsy got a power play assist, so we love
Oh,
to see
beautiful.
it.
Just now.
Like 2 or 3 minutes ago.
I missed that.
And
Let's
then
go.
also 2 or 3 minutes ago, Jordan Montgomery agreed to terms with the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Oh yeah, that's a lefty pitcher for us.
Oh, in the
So-
show? Yeah, it is a lefty
Yeah.
pitcher for us in the show. Let's go. I was like, us? What the fuck? Yeah, no. Okay, yeah, good for them, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah, I
MLB
mean,
MLB opening day is Thursday. I guess we can mention that.
Oh yeah.
we could
But
talk
yeah.
about a couple things next week.
Yeah,
'cause
we
we're
can
gonna
do
have-
our
we're gonna have
MLB
less March Madness games to talk about as well.
we can do our MLB preview like 3 weeks into the season.
Yeah, I'll give a
Yeah.
hint. The White Sox suck. The White
Yeah.
Sox are terrible.
How would you feel if
and
if they
I guess there was breaking news in the MLB that we didn't talk about.
Oh,
Shohei
Shohei?
Ohtani and his translator, EPA or whatever. Possible gambling.
I'll say I
Probably.
feel for him because this is the best gambling month of the year, and getting got this month is brutal.
Yeah.
So I'll say I do feel for him a little bit.
$4.5
And,
million dollars?
They said
Oh.
Ohtani bets, but he's still a free man.
Yeah,
The streets
I
are
saw
saying.
that. And then there was the Raptors player. Oh my gosh, I can't think of his name. His brother.
Yeah. I saw that too. I didn't know. I honestly didn't even really know him.
It's Michael Porter Jr.'s Jonte Porter.
Yeah.
Michael Porter Jr.'s brother was caught
That's his
allegedly.
brother?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Really?
Allegedly gambling on himself and purposely winning a bunch of money. Which is
See, I saw that, but I want to know.
He's
like
taking
he was
unders?
taking his
You wanna-
unders.
he was
He's
taking
taking
his
unders?
okay, what he would do is he would take his this is what they have so far from what I've seen on Twitter, which you never know. But he would go into the game. He would bet all of his unders, really. He would play like 4 minutes, and then he left the game with an eye injury.
Oh, that's devious.
And the biggest winner on that sports bet of the night was Porter's like under in points and under in rebounds was the biggest win of the night. And then it happened again like a week later, where he
That's
left the game
crazy.
with like a sickness, is what it was. And the biggest win of the night was Jonte Porter under. And who was betting on Jonte Porter?
Yeah, bro,
Wow.
nobody.
Wow.
See, like you can get away with that if you're like LeBron, because
Yeah.
like that you're gonna fall. Like he had to know that like him and his boys or whoever he's telling are the only people placing bets on
And you
Jonathan.
gotta and you gotta think these unders are set at like 1.5 assists, four and a
Yeah,
half
yeah.
Has
points.
to be. Has to be.
Being that confident to put insane money on Jonte Porter under 1.5 assists
No,
is crazy.
There was
no, that's got to
also
be even less because if he's only getting 4 minutes, like there's no way
yeah,
he's actually.
there was also
Well, 4 minutes before he got hurt.
yeah.
Right. Oh
There's a
God, that's
video
insane.
of him hitting a three, right? And he banked in the three. So it almost like he wasn't trying to- and they put the camera on him after he hits, and he looks upset.
Like, oh.
It looks like the face of a man who lost some money. So
Being pissed off that you made a shot because you lost
Josh
money.
sees that in the mirror every morning.
I was about to say that kind of sounds like my idol.
yeah, he
I was
was
just
the
thinking,
biggest.
what if I would have known? Couldn't have slid that information to your boy.
Multiple betting accounts attempted to place wagers of about 10,000 to 20,000 on Porter's under in the game against the Clippers.
Which is crazy because I'm pretty sure there's like $2,000 limits on player props, so they had to have been doing it from multiple accounts.
That's why it says
Yeah,
multiple betting accounts.
Yeah, interesting.
Uh,
that's crazy.
safe to
Very
say,
interesting.
his two-way contract is at 415,000. I hope that those
Not
couple
enough,
unders
I guess.
couple unders got him to that point.
Yeah, I feel like they probably take that money away. Oh, I'm seeing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar getting ready for his game. He's locked in. He's
Go
locked
six.
in.
They'd be playing this weekend if it wasn't for Virginia.
Yeah, for UVA. Ouch.
Couple
But
teams.
that about does it for this episode of the Engage 8 pod. We will be back next week to talk about our final four teams, as well as I think that's when we'll do the NFC AFC North recap because we've been putting that off for a couple of weeks because of March Madness. So we'll be doing both of those next week on one of the days. I'm not sure when. But until then, hit all of our links in the description for all of our social medias and whatnot. And we'll see everybody in the next one.